If the global supply of fossil fuels stopped tomorrow, major metropolitan grids would go dark in 48 hours. Within a week, the international supply chains that deliver food and medicine would stop moving. We rely on this resource for the invisible architecture of modern life. It manufactures the sterile plastics used in emergency rooms, fuels the cargo ships moving 80% of global trade, and powers commercial aviation. Because it touches nearly every physical good we consume, crude oil acts as the baseline currency of international geopolitics. It dictates the balance of military power and dictates the limits of global diplomacy. Industrial agriculture and global logistics depend entirely on consistent energy flow. Every other economic sector relies on this foundational input to maintain basic function. To understand who controls that input, look at the immense storage infrastructure spreading across the Middle East. Beneath these deserts lie over 800 billion barrels of proven crude reserves. That heavy geographic concentration grants specific nations, particularly Saudi Arabia and Iran, outsized influence over global markets. We classify these nations as petrostates, countries whose economies and ruling structures rely on exporting oil and gas. Because foreign powers rely on these exports for domestic stability, these governments often maintain their global standing despite significant international friction. The leaders who control the extraction valves in this region possess the ability to accelerate or intentionally stall the economic growth of nations thousands of miles away. When human survival is tied to a geographically concentrated resource, securing it leads to military force. The 1990s Gulf War provides the clearest modern example. In 1990, Iraqi armored divisions rolled across the border into neighboring Kuwait. The objective was a direct territorial grab to seize Kuwait's massive crude reserves and deepwater ports. As Iraqi forces were forced to retreat months later, they deployed scorched earth tactics. They rigged and ignited over 600 Kuwaiti oil wells, using the crude to deny the resource to advancing forces. Restoring stability to the region required a coalition of 35 nations, deploying nearly 1 million troops and thousands of tactical aircraft. The scale of that deployment showed that global powers will authorize massive military intervention to ensure no single hostile actor can monopolize the flow of crude. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow maritime bottleneck between Oman and Iran. A full fifth of the world's total oil consumption funnels through this exact waterway every day. Regional powers exploit this chokepoint. Iranian naval units frequently deploy fast attack boats, utilizing asymmetric tactics to patrol the waters directly alongside massive commercial tankers. These maneuvers frequently lead to physical disruptions. Iranian naval forces have repeatedly boarded and seized international vessels, like the British-flagged Stena Impero, holding international shipping in place. This local volatility is compounding. The ongoing shadow war between Iran and Israel involves targeted strikes and retaliatory missile launches, elevating the persistent risk of a broader military blockade across the Persian Gulf. A nation does not need to extract oil to dictate the market. The ability to arm and barricade transit routes provides the same leverage. A maritime blockade on the other side of the world doesn't stay contained to military front lines. It immediately affects the cost of living for ordinary citizens. This chart tracks the global price of crude oil. Notice how a single seized tanker or a targeted strike on a refinery correlates with an aggressive spike in the price per barrel. That initial jump triggers a secondary ripple effect. When diesel costs rise, shipping rates for freight trucks increase. Within weeks, the price of groceries and basic consumer goods surges at the checkout counter. Because petroleum is integrated into nearly every physical product, regional military skirmishes force immediate financial adjustments in households worldwide. The development of solar, wind, and nuclear energy provides an alternative. This global transition operates as an exit strategy designed to remove the threat of geopolitical blackmail. Uncoupling the global economy from fossil fuels requires rebuilding the entire international energy grid. Governments must manufacture millions of batteries, lay new transmission lines, and physically mine thousands of tons of copper and lithium. This transition threatens the survival of established petrostates. Stripped of their primary export, their national economies face collapse. These nations have a clear political incentive to resist the shift. The global reliance on extracted crude will eventually end, but as legacy powers fight to maintain their leverage, the decades spent dismantling the system will likely be highly volatile.